To begin this morning, former President Barack Obama. As we mentioned, it's his first interview since his vice president, Joe Biden, became the nation's president-elect. President Obama talks about that and much more with CBS This Morning's Gayle King.
Good to see you, the imaginary. There you go.
Good to see you.
Uh-oh, don't lose your mask now.
Almost 4 years after he left the White House,
We all good? We got speed?
former President Barack Obama is ready to talk.
Let's go.
He's been looking back while writing the first volume of a memoir about his presidency.
The feeling that I had entered, not an office, but a sanctum of democracy.
President of the United States. Take us to that day when you walked in.
You know, Inauguration Day is a little bit about everybody else. It's a little bit like your wedding. You're so busy trying to make sure you're doing everything right and everybody's where they're supposed to be that you can't catch your breath. The first time I walked in as president by myself, though, and sat at the Resolute desk, I think you feel a reverence for the office. I think it was President Lincoln who said, if you weren't religious before you got in office, you sure are on your knees praying once you're in office.
President Barack Obama inherited a country teetering on the brink of financial calamity, recession, if not another depression. But as he tried to work with Congress, he immediately encountered a wall of resistance.
Should be to deny President Obama a second term.
We're going to make you a one-term president. Mitch McConnell said that out loud. How do you deal with that type of hostility?
Part of what I try to describe is how early that obstructionist attitude starts.
It started day
it
one.
started on day one because we were trying to pass the Recovery Act, the stimulus package. People were losing their jobs, they were losing their homes, and the economy was collapsing. At the time, I thought, all right, well, obviously Republicans aren't going to agree with me on everything, but on this, all the economists agreed this is what we need. They'll give some cooperation on this, and we didn't get any.
The American Recovery and Reinvestment Act eventually did pass, with just 3 Republican senators voting yes. But the die was cast. As the president then set out to overhaul the health care system, opposition to his agenda only increased. When he addressed Congress in September of his first year in office, the hostility was overt and it was startling.
One of the big examples that many people saw of disrespect, you're laying out the Affordable Care Act, joint session of Congress, and in the middle of your speech, Congressman Joe Wilson, South Carolina, yells in the middle of that, "You lie." I heard a audible gasp, and I looked at you. You know, we could see the veins on your head on the side. So I'm wondering, what did you think in that moment, and what did you want to do, and what did you do?
I write about this.
I know, that's why I'm asking you.
I am shocked, and my initial instinct is, let me walk down and smack this guy on the head. What is he thinking? It's not true. And instead I just said, that's not true, and I just move on. He called afterwards to apologize, although as I point out in the book, he saw a huge spike in campaign contributions from Republicans across the country who thought he had done something heroic.
Throughout his term, President Obama was sometimes criticized for seeming aloof, not playing the D.C. political game.
Do you think you made enough of an effort to reach out to the other side of the aisle?
We tried everything. We had Super Bowl parties. We'd invite them to dinner. I'd go to their caucus meetings.
The fuss of being president, the pomp, the press, the physical constraints, all that I could have done without. The actual work, though, the work I loved, even when it didn't love me back.
As Barack Obama tried to adjust to the presidency and the politics, his family was trying to adjust to life in the White House bubble.
There's this weird isolation that you begin to feel.
Did you like that feeling?
No, I don't think you ever get fully used to it.
Our conversation Wednesday afternoon was at the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery, where a painting of Michelle Obama hangs among the first ladies. And that whole political thing, definitely not her idea.
She made it clear she was never into politics, but she always supported you. Yeah, and there were times when you said, when we do this, she goes, well, wait, what we? What we?
I quote her as saying, not we,
Yes.
you. I am mindful of the sacrifices that she made, but the good news is that for whatever reason she has forgiven me, sort of. she still reminds me occasionally of what she put up with.
Hello, everybody.
The Obamas were one of the few first families with young children to have moved into the White House. Malia was 10, and Sasha was only 7 years old. The impact on father and daughters cut both ways.
You said you can remember missing teeth and their round cheeks and their pigtails, that they didn't seem to suffer in terms of lack of time with Dad, but you said you were always very acutely aware of it.
You know, I probably suffered more from not being able to do some of the ordinary dad things that I had done before we got to the White House. I'd come from some security briefing in the Situation Room and reading about terrorist threats and this and that, and then I'm sitting down and Malia and Sasha are talking about like, oh, that boy was so stupid. You know, it takes you out of yourself and your head and reminds you of what's good in the world.
Being your First Lady has been the greatest honor of my life, and I hope I've made you proud.
The former president says as the family left the White House for the last time in 2017, they were able to exhale, Michelle Obama in particular.
When the presidency was over, two things happened. One was objectively I just had more time, but two is that she was able to let go of some of the stress of just feeling as if I've got to get everything right all the time, I'm being watched all the time. You know, her releasing her breath that I think she'd been holding for close to 10 years at that point.
Now Barack Obama can look back on his successes and failures. He had come into office facing high expectations, both as the first black president and at the age of 47, one of the youngest.
A lot of folks, in the same way that they expected, now we're in a post-racial America because we elected a black president, I think a lot of people expected, well, we got this young progressive president, and now suddenly we're going to eliminate inequality, and we're immediately going to have universal health care, and we're going to have climate change legislation, immigration reform, and criminal justice reform, and all the things that I wanted to get done. But what I understood very early on is the federal government, headed by the president, is an ocean liner. It is not a speedboat. Yeah. 10 years from now, 20 years from now, the work you've done may be appreciated as having been good and helpful, but at the time it can feel like, wow, this isn't happening fast enough.
President Obama's successor was Donald Trump. Some have seen Mr. Trump's victory, in part, as a backlash to the Obama presidency.
Donald Trump often raises eyebrows when he says he's done more for black America and people of color.
Yes, it does raise eyebrows. Yeah. You are correct.
I have done more for the African-American community than any president since Abraham Lincoln.
What do you think when you hear that? Do you take that as an insult to you?
No,
or the work that you've done?
I think it's fair to say that there are many things he says that I do not take personally or seriously, although I think they can often be destructive and harmful.
President Barack Hussein Obama comes in.
Whether he took things Donald Trump said personally or not, Barack Obama emerged front and center in the last month of his former Vice President Joe Biden's presidential campaign.
I've never lost hope over these last 4 years. I've been mad.
And he didn't pull any punches.
I've been frustrated.
Michelle Obama always says, when they go low, we go high. It seemed to many people, when you were on the campaign trail for Joe Biden,
Trump cares about feeding his ego. Joe cares about keeping you safe and your family safe.
It wasn't a matter of going low or high. You went in. They called it Barack Obama Unleashed. Was it personal for you, or did you just think, I've had it?
It wasn't personal. Actually,
You didn't have a I've had it moment?
The truth is, everything I said, I was just stating facts.
You got a president right now, he wants full credit for an economy that he inherited. He wants zero blame for the pandemic he ignored.
It was out of character for you to speak up, Mr. President, that way.
I was not the person who, in a White House briefing room, said, how is bleach the way to solve COVID? I wasn't doing a routine. I was repeating words that I heard. It is not my preference to be out there. I think we were in a circumstance in this election in which certain norms, certain institutional values that are so extraordinarily important had been breached, that it was important for me as somebody who had served in that office to simply let people know This is not normal.
This election is over.
While Joe Biden waits to assume the presidency, President Trump continues without evidence to challenge the election's outcome.
They're trying to steal an election.
And many of Mr. Trump's supporters continue to stand behind him.
72 million people voted for Donald Trump. What does that say to you about the state of this country?
Well, what it says is that we are still deeply divided. The power of that alternative worldview that's presented in the media that those voters consume, it carries a lot of weight.
Are you worried about that?
Yes. It's very hard for our democracy to function if we are operating on just completely different sets of facts.
But it's clear as we sit here today, we're not going to have a peaceful transition. I think about John McCain calling, George and Laura Bush welcoming you and Michelle Obama to the White House.
Could not have been more gracious.
I remember you inviting Donald Trump to the White House.
If you succeed, then the country succeeds.
I wish that you succeed because we want the country to succeed.
Right.
He does not seem to have taken a page out of any of those playbooks.
No.
So what is at stake here?
Well, look, Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. Kamala Harris will be the next vice president. There's no legal basis.
But he's getting support from members of the Republican Party who are not challenging him.
And that has been disappointing.
Yeah.
But it's been sort of par for the course during these 4 years. They obviously didn't think there was any fraud going on because they didn't say anything about it for the first 2 days. But there's damage to this because what happens is that the peaceful transfer of power, the notion that any of us who attain an elected office, whether it's dog catcher or president, are servants of the people. It's a temporary job. We're not above the rules. We're not above the law. That's the essence of our democracy.
And as to advice for his old running mate?
He doesn't need my advice, and I will help him in any ways that I can. Now, I'm not planning to suddenly work on the White House staff or something.
No cabinet position for you,
There are
Mr.
probably
President?
some things I would not be doing because Michelle would leave me.
Yes.
She'd be like, what? You're doing what?
The goal of the foundation.
What he is doing these days, running a charitable foundation, designing his presidential library in Chicago, and along with Michelle, producing for Netflix. Gone are the trappings of the office, such as a presidential motorcade clearing his path. Instead, Barack Obama is rediscovering the simple things.
I'm driving along. I'm still not driving.
But you're in the car.
But I'm in the car in the back seat, and I'm, I don't know, looking at my iPad or something. And suddenly we stop, and I'm like, what's going on? There's a red light. And there's a car right next to us. Some kids are, eating a burrito or something in the back seat. Oh, and back to life.